told that as long as it's shorter than Hamlet, I'm allowed to say it. And it's sort of grown by a page every day. So, okay, so I'll start by saying good evening, ladies and gentlemen, because for me it's evening. And there have been a lot of truly great romances over a lot of history. Troilus and Cressida, Romeo and Juliet, Sheldon and Amy. And now we have to add one more, which is Dave and Elizabeth. And in keeping with this great transatlantic love affair that we're celebrating today, a lot of this speech was written somewhere over the Atlantic, because it was a very long flight and I had to have something to do along the way. I thought I would start by just telling you something about how I first met Dave. And I first met him when he was holding me hostage at gunpoint. And I should point out that this was at an acting workshop. And he did very fine acting. So fine that I didn't have to act scared as the hostage, for which I was very grateful, because I didn't know what I was doing. And that sort of set the stage for our friendship over the last 20 years. He's menacing, and I'm scared. And I first met Elizabeth, of course, through Dave. The first time I met her in person was in Crawley. And I vividly remember her walking. I was going to give them a lift somewhere, I don't know where. That I've forgotten. I just remember the two of them walking down the road to meet me in my car and thinking, that's a couple that are going to stay together. You could just tell from the way that they were. And I got to know them very well as a couple through podcasting. Dave very kindly asked me to write some scripts, some comedy scripts for the podcast, which I was very pleased to do. And I came up with a couple of lead characters. One who was a very large buffoon of a man who didn't suffer fools lightly, who had a slight South London accent, and a rather dirty mind. The other was a very bright, chirpy, no-nonsense American woman who was ever so slightly over-organised and very loosely connected with education. As you can imagine, these parts proved impossible to cast until Dave and Elizabeth agreed to do them after much nagging. And it was in one of those scripts that the word podcast wedding was first mentioned, long before it ever actually became the reality that it is today. And I thought I would share with you just a little bit of one of the scripts, because it, do you know, dear, I'm not going to make you sing, because it is a bit from Lillibet the musical, written in 2 acts with 6 parts, because it went on longer. And I took a bit of My Fair Lady, Frederick Lowe, Alan J. And I wrote a little song for them to sing, entitled I'm Doing a Podcast in the Morning. And I thought that I would rewrite just a little bit of that for today. If I can find it. This is where I regret making so many notes. And it goes a bit like this. Yes, Dave and Liz got married just this morning, spruced up and looking in their prime. And yes, we were heading for that podcast wedding, and we got them to the church on time. Well, nearly. And finally, because I could stand here and I could just go on talking forever, but that would be quite boring. I would just like to give Dave a few wise words of advice for from... yeah, you'll like these though. From that great American poet Ogden Nash, who wrote a little poem entitled A Word to Husbands, which goes, to keep your marriage brimming with love in the loving cup. Whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up.
Yeah.